Today we're going to talk about the coolest motorcycles that the USA never got, whether they were banned, illegal, or simply just because of the market at the time. We did not get them here in the States, and I think these motorcycles are absolutely phenomenal. In the 80s and 90s there was a lot of regulation changes, and with those changes came the banning of some of the best motorcycles ever made. One of the motorcycles on the list is the RZ or RD 500. Believe it or not, the USA did not get this amazing Yamaha. Even though you might see them in the United States, none of those are US models. Every single one of them is an import. The RZ 500 was basically a race bike delivered to the road. It had a V4 500cc two-stroke engine. The bike sounds absolutely insane. These bikes produce 88 horsepower and 9,500 RPM and 45 pound-feet of torque. They were produced between 1984 and 1986. They were available in Canada, Europe, and Australia. Many of the models here in America are actually from Canada. Obviously, the shipping is much cheaper than bringing them from Europe, but now we're seeing a lot of these bikes also being brought from Japan. This motorcycle produced all of that power, went to 140 miles per hour, and still had a dry weight of sub 400 pounds. The RZ RD 500 is one of the most beautiful looking bikes of this era, but also it is quite literally an engineering marvel. It's one of those bikes we've talked about many times on this channel, and believe it or not, it wasn't available in the US because of emissions regulations, along with many other two-strokes from this era. Now, the two-stroke ban was here to stay, and in the early 2000s, Aprilia came out with a bike called the RS250. That bike, of course, being a two-stroke 250cc, was not available for sale for street use in the USA. You could get track bikes, I believe, but you could not get an RS250 street bike. And the Aprilia RS250 is an absolute weapon. It has a V-twin 250cc engine that makes between 60 and 70 horsepower. They had a few different variations between the years. This bike had a dry weight of 308 pounds, and it went over 130 miles per hour. They were produced between 1995 and 2002, and I can't fathom what this motorcycle would feel like to ride. It is an absolute weapon. Like, the definition of a weapon in a motorcycle is this bike. I would absolutely love to own one of these one day, someday. Even though they might have their reliability issues, it is one of the most insane motorcycles to ever come out. Now, the two-strokes were starting to be favored for the four-strokes. They're much more emission compliant, but also Honda was absolutely demolishing. They were killing two-stroke bikes with a four-stroke V4 machine. Just like the RC30, the NC30 is a V4, but unlike the RC30 being a 750cc, it is a 400cc, often claimed to be the best 400cc ever made. Yeah, you heard me, 400cc V4. With the V4 it had 16 valves, but it also had gear driven cams just like the RC30, and they sound absolutely awesome. But not just that, this motorcycle revved out to 14,500 RPM, and it made 59 horsepower. A pretty substantial punching 400cc if you ask me. They actually are quite affordable in the UK markets, and if I could get one for that price, I would absolutely jump on it. But here in the United States, this particular one will cost you about 5 figures because of import and taxes. Why can't life just be? Now, just because Honda was making those four-strokes doesn't mean that they weren't making two-strokes. And another absolutely phenomenal machine from the two-stroke world that we didn't get was the Honda NS400R. But this motorcycle is much more unique than just being a two-stroke. This was a V3, the only V3 ever made for the streets. It had 2 cylinders in front, 1 cylinder in back that were 90 degrees apart. This motorcycle made 72 horsepower and 9,500 RPM, and it weighed under 400 pounds wet. An aluminum frame, adjustable front and rear suspension, dual disc brakes in the front, and was produced between 1985 and 1987. Sold in Japan, Canada, Australia, and some other parts of Europe, but never made for America. Again, you'll probably see a lot of Canadian models trickle into the US. I've seen a few bikes for sale in the US, and well, it's one of the coolest bikes ever. With that, we're gonna go into the honorable mentions real quick because there's a few bikes I want to mention, but I'm sure many of you guys know the story, and one of them is also very similar to the other. That bike was the Suzuki RG500. Now this is a square 4 500cc. Now the RG500 features a square 4, but just like the NSR and the RD500, it's another large capacity race bike from the era. And all of them have their own unique engine. The RD500 is more of a mainstream bike in my opinion. The Honda features a crazy engine, as well as the Suzuki, which is why it's in this video. The other bike I want to mention is the highest driving motorcycle of all time, the Honda CBR 250RR. Now this bike, again, is one of those bikes that is pretty well known. Now I don't think it didn't deserve a spot on this list for the video, but I just wanted to condense the list down, and this was one of the bikes that made the honorable mention, revving up to 20,000 RPM inline 4-cylinder from Japan. I wish the USA got this bike. I was fortunate enough to see it a couple of weeks ago, and man, it's just a cool little pocket rocket. Now this next motorcycle was an absolute failure, but one of the most influential bikes of all time. But before that, if you guys haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so you don't miss more videos like this, and also me working on my motorcycles. But not only that, I'd like to thank everyone who has already picked up one of their house tees from the Vintage Racing Club. Help support the brand, help support the channel, and make more videos. The next bike I want to mention is the NR750 from Honda. The NR750 was a street version of the NR500. The NR500 was an oval piston V4 that Honda had developed to go racing. Now this bike wasn't very successful, but it helped Honda produce the RC30, which followed by the RC45, followed by the RC51, and it really cemented this winning history in Honda. The NR750 was the street bike version of that. The oval piston is kind of a flawed design in a way for motorcycles. Seems like Ferrari wants to pick it back up, but we'll see what happens with that. But it wasn't successful, but this motorcycle was over-engineered in every single aspect possible. And it still is an absolutely phenomenal and collectible machine. Now I've been spoiled. I see an NR750 every year, multiple times a year. Researching this bike again, well, it kind of sparked the interest back up in this machine. They cost a lot of money, they weren't available in the US, they're super rare, but they also have a lot of things a lot of other bikes don't. The NR750 used materials like carbon fiber, titanium hardware, the top of the top quality. It has an anodized windshield, which is why it has this kind of very weird tinge to it. The motorcycle has a 747cc V4 oval piston, 8 valve per cylinder, 32 valves in total, that produces 125 horsepower at 14,000 RPM, and it revs out to 15,000 RPM with a 6-speed transmission, weighs under 500 pounds, had a twin spar aluminum frame, and carbon fiber fairings. I mentioned carbon fiber once, but I had to mention it again because of how absolutely crazy it is. This bike costed over $100,000 adjusted with inflation, but the MSRP at the time was $50,000. They only built about 300 of them. There's a handful of them in the United States. I know this because, well, you see them come up for sale every once in a while, and they are not a cheap date. They still cost well over their MSRP, some even going for almost double their MSRP, brand new. Now we mentioned a lot of Hondas in this video, but this bike is just proof that no other company has done it like them. They've done so many insane things, and unfortunately, a good amount of those weird, oddball, really fun and cool bikes didn't make it into the United States. Not just from them, but many other companies. I'd love to hear your guys' takes of some of the best motorcycles the USA never got. And if you've owned or rode any of the motorcycles that I mentioned, leave a comment down below. I want to hear your guys' thoughts, opinions, and all the stuff on these motorcycles. I probably won't get to ride a majority of these bikes for many years, but I will make it a point to ride or own these motorcycles at some point or another. With that being said, if you guys did enjoy this video, do me a huge favor, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, pick up your house tees, and I will see you guys in the next video.